Hi, this is a response to Facts versus Religion and her talking about the Genesis 2 myth. It was an interesting interpretation of it, but I don't really think that original sin or innate knowledge of good and bad morality really has anything to do with the myths. I think that we can give a better interpretation of those myths. I think the key is the key for interpreting these myths was really given to us by Scott Gilbert and Ziani Zevic in the American Journal of Medical Genetics in 2001. They felt that the word tessella, which means rib, or has been translated as rib, is a mistranslation, that it actually means baculum. And a baculum is a bone that's in the penis of most animals, but is missing from the penis of males. So what the story is designed to do is to explain why one of the purposes of the story, of the myth, is to explain why there's no baculum in the male, and that's because God uses the baculum, Adam's baculum, to create the female. So let's go over the myth very briefly from the beginning, and we'll see how interesting it really is. The gods create man in their own image. The myth, of course, goes back to polytheistic times, so there's no real reason to say that God creates man in the myth. He's put in charge of the garden, so he's kind of the gardener. That's a job that they give him, and he's kind of like a nice son figure for the gods. And he can take virtually anything he wants, but man is not satisfied. He's lonely, he's empty. The gods create the animals first to keep him company, but no animal really satisfies him. The world is full for him in material goods, but he still has a lack of self. He's still empty, still finds the world an empty place. So what do the gods do? They take his penis bone, and in other words, they castrate him, and they create a woman, a companion for him. So in this case, in the story, Eve is really Eve is created from the penis bone, so she's more the male figure, and he, being castrated, becomes more the female figure in the story, which is what really makes it interesting. So he now has a real physical lack. He lacks the penis bone, the baculum. Let's see. It is the story explains man's lack of sexual need or desire, and it's only woman who actually gives him the desire. So I guess the word boner somehow goes all the way back to this point. So in order for man to get a boner, he needs a woman, because the penis bone, the baculum, is really in the woman, is really the woman. So she is sexual desire. The gods do not want man and woman to have sex. That seems to be true, but it has nothing to do with them being against sex that much. It's just that it's an incest taboo. She is literally his sister. She's another child of the gods. So it would be them having sex is really brother and sister having sex, really. And the gods also get their power through sex. We should remember that. Okay, we should remember older polytheistic societies reached their gods through having sex. So sex was not considered a bad thing. It was considered the way to God. It's the gods who are jealous of man, actually, and afraid of man. They're afraid of man. They're jealous of man having sex, and also jealous, and also afraid of man gaining their power from having sex, because that's how they get power, through sex. They've castrated him by taking away his penis bone, and he can only get it back by having sex with the woman. Now, I think it's obvious that the snake in the story is just the reference to the man's penis. There really isn't a snake. The man not having a baculum or a hard bone, his penis looks like a snake. So it's really the snake that talks to Eve. and you shouldn't take it literally as a snake. So it's the man's penis that is talking to the Eve, or at least Eve perceives it as a penis. It's probably the man talking, but she's kind of fixated on the penis, that being the place where she comes from. And whereas the man lacks her hardness, it is she who lacks the softness of the penis. So she's kind of, again, kind of a male figure there. And the apple, I guess the penis is looks like an apple with a worm in it, maybe, and that's why there's always talk about eating the apple, which really just refers to oral sex. So the penis looks like an apple with a worm in it, and the woman is enticed by the snake or the man into eating it, and she is told that she will die, but she does it. She has oral sex, and it turns out that she doesn't die, and so she then offers oral sex. She then offers herself for oral sex to the man, and then of course the gods find them, and they realize that they're naked, that they've had sex, and so they are thrown out of the Garden of Eden basically because of the incest taboo. And the punishment is the man's penis will be used for urination, and so kind of a filthy function, and that's changed, of course, later on to being a snake. When they take it literally, the story, they say it's a snake that'll have to crawl on the ground, but in the original text, it probably just meant that the penis had to be used for urination, and that was its punishment. And the woman will give birth in physical pain, and that's the pain because, again, the incest taboo that she broke. And the man will have to leave his kind of cushy job in the garden and go out and be a farmer and grow his own food on the earth, which isn't really very easy to do because the earth is kind of dry and hard. So the myth explains the missing penis bone in man. It explains the sexual attraction between man and woman, flesh of my flesh, bone of my bone. So the man is looking for his bone, and the woman is looking for her flesh that she came from. And it explains the urination through the penis as a punishment, and it explains the hardness of childbirth, and why we have to farm for a living. So there's all these determinations, all these explanatory parts of the myth explaining lots of different things in life. And that's probably why the myth is, or why the myth was so popular. Later on, all kinds of crazy ideas got attached to the myth, including the myth of original sin, but that doesn't seem to be part of the original myth at all. So that's my interpretation of the myth of Adam and Eve. I hope you enjoyed it.